How's it going, YouTube? It's your boy Topsonics coming at you with a different type of video today. So this video is going to be kind of an open letter to Konami, but also just kind of a long diatribe, I guess, of problems that I have and some other players have had with Yu-Gi-Oh! And Konami as a whole, and hopefully at the end giving some sort of solutions to the problems that we have after we go over them and address them as they come up. So, if you are here for a long video, feel free to buckle up and get a snack because we're going to be talking about why Konami seems to hate the Yu-Gi-Oh game as it stands today. So to kind of go over this, we have to start back from when I was going to first make the video, which was back during the Jeff Jones, or during the time when Jeff Jones made this tweet. I'm sorry, I'm going to misspeak a bit in the video, and it's not going to be very edited. Um, so Jeff Jones made this tweet back in, I think it was June of last year, where he talked about the annual stockholder meeting for Yu-Gi-Oh! And Konami. And in this stockholder meeting, they talked about specifically Master Duel, some stuff happening with Worlds, like the live stream, and ultimately how they were kind of displeased with how Master Duel wasn't translating to new players, and how the streams didn't seem to be doing too well. And frankly, I feel like there is a lot of stuff that goes into that, and so we'll start with that and we'll break that down. So first of all, Master Duel. So Master Duel is the online official simulator for Yu-Gi-Oh, but it is not a simulator that follows the TCG or the OCG at all. It also does not follow the basic rules of Yu-Gi-Oh. It also does not have a lot of the same problems that the TCG might have or the OCG. So first of all, it has its own forbidden list and it has its own card pool, which means that the OCG, the TCG, and the Master Duel all have their own separate card pools, which means that they have each one has different cards from each other, and Master Duel has its own forbidden list, which means that you can play certain cards in the OCG, but not in Master Duel and not in the TCG. You can play certain things in Master Duel and in the OCG, but not in the TCG. For example, Max C. Max C is legal in the OCG and Master Duel, but is not legal in the TCG. And you know, there's a lot that goes into it. Like for example, like Dragoon is allowed in the TCG, but not in the OCG or Master Duel, and so on and so forth. The problem with this is that if you are a person who plays Master Duel and you want to get into the physical card game, that means that you would have to, one, learn an entirely new forbidden list. Namely, if we're going to be focusing on the TCG mostly, because that's where I live in the United States, and I play the TCG. So the OCG is going to get a little left out here, unfortunately, but I apologize for that. And so what that ultimately means that if you're going from the Master Duel set of stuff to TCG, that means that unless you know for a fact what the forbidden list is, which can be completely different depending on stuff, then you're going to be buying cards for TCG that are for TC to play in the TCG, but that are banned, for example. So you could spend the money to buy a set of Max C, which, to be fair, even for a forbidden card, Max C isn't very cheap. So what that ultimately means is that you will be playing a card that's forbidden, which makes your deck illegal to be playing the TCG. If you don't know that and you don't like that, well then you might not want to play in the TCG anymore, and it just, you know, it makes a disconnect. Let alone the card pools. Like for example, Promethean Princess was a card that was legal for months before it even came out in the TCG. But you were able to play it in Master Duel, which is something crazy to me, personally. Another big thing that Konami seems to focus on is the kind of loot box idea. And to explain this is not to sit here and make the diatribe's argument of, oh, booster packs are the same thing as loot boxes, so, you know, loot boxes and booster packs should be illegal or considered gambling and this and that. it's not to make that that problematic connection. The idea is here because people basically treat packs similarly to loot boxes, but Konami does the exact same thing. More so than not, they consider like they tend to make booster boxes and cases of booster boxes similar to the idea of loot boxes. And this is coming from a company that is, notorious for their slot machines and pachinko machines and such as. So, I mean, this isn't a very far, this isn't a, a very otherworldly comparison to be making here. Um, and in doing so, because of the way that Konami acts, and they focus on this loot box mentality, they focus on the whales of the community, which means that they kind of cater to these people who spend an absolute insane amount of money on the game in order to get these shiny cardboard, the shiny cardboard. For example, part of the thing that they do is they basically create a new rarity every couple of sets, and they make it this really hard to pull, extravagant type of idea. So you had collector's rare. So originally you had ghost rares, but they kind of did away with that in ultimate rares, right? And now you have starlight rares, and then you have collector rares, and now you have prismatic collector rares, and now you have quarter century rares, which are just kind of weird starlight rares, but with the quarter century stamp on it. And then you have quarter century secret rares. You had quarter century ultra rares at one point. You have Pharaoh rare. You have Pharaoh secret rare, which was like only in Magnificent Mavens and like one other thing. Um, you have 10,000 rare. You have ultimate rare. You have prismatic ultimate rare. You have all these you have all these different chase rarities that you can have, but at the same time you have to spend a lot of money to get some. You have to spend either a lot of money to buy the single, or you have to spend a lot of money to get the packs to pull these cards, which means that you're buying cases, which means that you're spending hundreds of dollars, if not thousand, up to thousand, on a case of cards that you might not even play the game for if you're a collector, or if you're just trying to you won't even make your money back probably if you even sold that starlight rare on the case that you bought, depending on the starlight rare that you pull. It's a very big chance that you're taking. It is like unironically on a level with gambling. But at the same time, you are buying like a bunch of cards and such as. So it's a mixed bag. But the idea is that they cater to this type of whale mentality and the loot box mentality, which ultimately doesn't really serve well for the game if you're trying to make a competitive card game as Konami. Like, if you are Konami in this situation, if you want to sell your product that way, that's fine, right? But then there's so many other things that they do to force people to have to spend a ton of money on the game, including forcing people to spend tons of money in the secondary market, while also doing crazy things to hit the secondary market. We'll talk more about that stuff later, because that, like, for example, the playmat stuff and whatnot is already a crazy thing. On top of the fact that we have bad card design and things like that. But that's more problems with the game, less so than with Konami's outlook on the game. So to continue with Konami's outlook onto the game, the most recent problematic issue that I can tell is from my perspective when it comes to their involvement in changing stuff up in packs, for example, is Molcharmi Porluia, or however you say it. The Molcharmi monsters are crazy with how they're changed value-wise. So Molcharmi Porluia is a secret rare in the TCG, but was a rare in the OCG, which is an incredibly weird issue to have, in my opinion. It's just, in a sense, making it so to get packs of Infinite Forbidden, now if you want to buy packs of Infinite Forbidden, you are most likely not going to get a lot of the cards that are powerful in a sense of every deck in order to make everybody on a like level playing field. They have these unfair cards such as Molchummy, as well as stuff like the one that everybody tends to complain about is Dimensional Shifter. Well, you have cards like these, which are lingering effects that everybody tends to hate, right? That are hand traps, but at the same time, you have you change the rarities for this stuff, right? So like Dimensional Shifter came out as like a 10 exclusive, and then only got reprinted like semi recently. Likewise, you have Molchami Prelulia, which was a rare in the OCG, so it was relatively cheap and easy to get. But then here in the TCG, this card is a secret rare, which means it's at least, $35-$40, like relatively now. But with how well it's done in the European nationals and such, it'll probably go up in price. Same thing with Fiendsmith Engraver. It was an ultra rare in the OCG originally. It has a secret rare version, and it has a I think it's whatever their equivalent of Starlight Rare is, but it only came in a secret rare here. Which we'll talk more about alternate rarity stuff later as well. That's going to be part of the solution stuff later in the video. But for example, but again, Engraver here is a $100 secret rare. I'm not even going to talk about how much the Starlight Rare is. For the lowest rarity here, it is $100 a copy, because there is no lower rarity, anything like that. More cards that have the same issue. Primeval Planet Perilino. At the height of tournaments, this card was easily $100 USD. It went back and forth between 70 to 80. Even after Kickless got hit, back when tournaments was still doing really well. Even though I despised that format, I didn't think it was it wasn't, to me, it was a mix of skill based with heavy RNG. So it was kind of, but it was RNG in a good sense rather than RNG is just, oh, did you draw the shifter? Okay, GG. But again, a different argument. But it was a rare in the OCG and a secret rare in the TCG. Cashier Theosis, another card that was $80 in its heyday, when Cashier was at its peak, was a common in the OCG. And I don't think Theosis has even had a reprint yet. Likewise, Rock the Vanquisher was a big problem. The entire Vanquisher set was a problem because Wild Survivors was done so poorly, and we'll talk about that again in a second. But Rock the Vanquisher was a common in the OCG and an ultra rare in the TCG. And then to get back to the Wild Survivor problem, Wild Survivors was a set that was absolutely done dirty, because you had stuff that was incredibly cheap. Sorry, that was the next one that we're going to talk about. Vanquish Soul. Sorry, get back to that. The Vanquish Soul cards were, I think it was 7 out of 10 of the ultra rares in Wild Survivors. So you have 10 ultra rares in the entire set, and 7 of them are Vanquish Soul cards. And like, I get that it's a side set, but that means that you had, like, I think it was Ground Xeno was the other ultra rare, and then the other two were just inconsequential because they were attached to that like weird restaurant archetype that was kind of connected to Hungry Burger. While I love Hungry Burger, that the archetype was kind of weird. And like ultimately, it's just more evidence of Konami messing with like a set. Likewise, the Secret Forces had a lot of the same issue. The Secret Forces had an issue with Necrozabrionac being like, I think you could pull like one Necrozabrionac in every 144 packs or something like that. It was weird that like you had to like get like 1 or 2 of them per case, which is just more harkens back again to the whole mentality of whales in the game. You have to spend a ton of money in order to get the best deck. The original format for everyone's complaint about that kind of stuff was Teledad format. And to go back to that one, Dark Dragon in the TCG was a secret rare, but it was a rare in the OCG. And notice how like a lot of these cards were like rares in the OCG and then secret rares here in the TCG. It's a really weird pattern to kind of have. Likewise, Triple Tactics Thrust was a rare in the OCG, and it came over here as a secret rare. And again, none of these cards I don't think were ever like in their heyday. I don't think they were ever $80 or below outside of Molcharmy Perlui, and that card will easily probably go up in price the more play that it gets, considering that like how much how many games that it won nearly by itself. And ultimately, I think that like these lingering effects and things like that are really unhealthy for the game. Um, Other examples of rarity changes are like Cleave Force Scout. I think I brought up Triple Tactics Thrust. Eldritch the Golden Lord was a problem. It was an ultra rare and it came over here as a secret rare, but was really short printed. Necros of Bryanak was a super rare and came over here as a secret rare. Vanquish Soul Pantera was a common, came over as an ultra. Vanquish Soul Raisin was a super, came over as an ultra. And like these are just like ones that I was able to name off the top of my head. That I just like these were just ones that I like knew for the most part. There's a ton of other ones that are out there that could be easily talked about. Where you basically have to either like give up your wallet or sell your soul in order to get these cards. There are a lot of other problems with stuff. Like for example, we have really bad issues with card imports. I brought up imports a bit earlier, but some really bad imports. I guess harping back to the Teledad format. Crush Card Virus was a card that honestly is one of the easiest ones to point out for how bad the imports can be. Crush Card came out in 1999 for the OCG, and in the original stuff, and then I think it got reprinted 5 times if I recall right. It was like 3 structure decks and like 2 booster packs. Before we even got it at all in like a turbo pack here in the United States. And I think that was like 8 years. I think was the difference for that. And then you could get it You could get it a year prior to when we got it, but the only way to get it then was to get first place in a Shonen Jump event and get it as a prize card, which is an absolute crazy thing to pull. Which was why like Teledad, like it was one of the craziest things to get until I think it was 2009 when the first gold series set came out, and that was when you were able to get Crush Card. Crush Card became widely available to people who also didn't play in tournaments for the longest time. So just more discrepancies. Likewise, you have cards like Sixth Sense that didn't come to the TCG I think for an entire decade. Card came or even more. Because I think it came out in Dragon Ruler format here for us before like almost immediately getting banned. Because we were still using the OCG ban list, but technically Sixth Sense wasn't on our list yet because when it finally got imported, we were allowed to play it for a little bit before the ban list essentially updated, and we officially added Sixth Sense to the forbidden list for us. Because we were still sharing a list of like similarly at the time, if not very similar. I forget exactly when the split happened. I think it was whenever Shadal's came out. I think it was when we started separating the forbidden lists, but I can't remember exactly for sure. But to continue on with some of the problems with stuff, so poor product adaptations. Just to get into it, so we had the Super Shiny Box, which this is what Japan got. Japan got the Secret Shiny Box, where they got a carrying box, I guess is the way to say it, or like a storage box. Sorry, words are hard. Which you can see in the top right. Is that black box with a really nice design on it. They got a set of 2 promo cards. One from Mayakashi, one from Sky Striker, or one from Witchcrafter. They got a set. They got an acrylic standee, one of 2 from the same archetype. So for the image here, it is obviously Mayakashi because it's all Yuka Onna. And then they got a pack of sleeves, and they also got a pack of oversleeves. As well as they got 5 booster packs of whatever the set was, which or not whatever the set was of the Secret Shiny Box reprint set. Which I think was mostly similar to ours, but it didn't contain the Ishizu stuff. Now, mind you, this is a pack of sleeves, a pack of oversleeves, which is a huge difference that between us and between the TCG and the OCG, is that they get oversleeves and they get so much extra stuff. So the secret shiny box also came with an acrylic standee. It was one of the two Maikashis, one of the two Witchcrafter characters that were featured, or it was Sky Striker Rose or Ray. Likewise, same thing. We got the same we got the same pack of sleeves, but mind you, we didn't get the oversleeves. We didn't get the acrylic standee, and the cards that were promos in this set. So, for example, the Sky Striker promos were Linkage and Sky Striker Hamp. Those promos were put into the pack for us, so we didn't get promos. So, to show the stark contrast, this is everything they got, including the carrying case or the storage case. This is everything they got. Without they also got booster packs, so that's not in the picture. But this is pretty much everything they got. What the TCG got was Magnificent Mavens, where we got a booster box, or we got we got 4 booster packs. We got a pack of sleeves, and we got we got it all in this little plastic bit in this disposable little like throwaway cardboard. Absolutely, I think this is terrible. And absolutely disgusting. And so, mind you, Magnificent Maven's MSRP was $24.99, which means most stores probably sold it to you for about $26, which ultimately, at the end of the day, means that they probably, after tax, you probably got it for $27. At the end of the day, the TCG had it more expensive than the OCG as well, because theirs was 3,250 yen, which at the time equated to about 25, about 24, 25 USD, somewhere between that, if I remember correctly, which just means that they got it. It's only a few dollars cheaper, but for a few dollars cheaper, they went from having 4 booster packs to 5 and a pack of sleeves to also having, they went from having a four booster packs, a pack of sleeves, to an extra pack of oversleeves, an extra booster pack, an acrylic standee, promo cards, and a storage case, all in a nice little box that you could buy. Similarly to what we got with Duel Devastators, that was basically what they got. More so, and this is one of the ones that was, to me, this is one of the most extreme and crazy ones. For example, too, we got there was this Prismatic God Box that they had. They had a Prismatic God Box, which was which was similarly to the secret shiny box, where they got one of 3 carrying cases. So they got a carrying case, or a storage case that featured one of the 3 God cards on it. Red, yellow, blue. Likewise, they got a pack of sleeves. So if you've ever seen the hieroglyphic sleeves with that were colored red, yellow, blue, those were probably from the Prismatic God Box. They were probably somebody got them imported. Likewise, they got a pack of oversleeves that had a stylized hieroglyphic border on them. I've had the privilege of having some of those before, because they're actually pretty cheap to buy and import if you know where to buy from. They also came with an acrylic display case, which featured the hieroglyphics as well. And I think they came with a few booster packs, and they came, I think, with a promo card of one of the God cards, but don't quote me on that. I don't remember exactly if they did. So all this stuff, and then what we got was the Egyptian God booster box, the Egyptian God structure decks. Yep. Mind you, also, there's no raw version of this of the structure decks. It was only Slave for an Obelisk, so there's no raw version of this, which again really just kind of seems boring. And we got 2 structure decks that the OCG didn't get. Everything that we got in the structure decks, they got in the packs. So it's just another mindless change that didn't need to happen. It would have been extremely awesome of Konami to give us a set of stuff that would have a set of sleeves and stuff like that, things such as, and you could have given us like a pre-made stack of cards, like or the decks themselves in those booster boxes or in those boxes and stuff such. Similarly, that you could do with the speed duel stuff. I think it would be super easy, but Konami tends to not like to do things even remotely easy. Mind you, there's also a lot of changes that happen later with some of the structure decks. So to start with the structure decks, the trap tricks structure decks, or beware of trap tricks or forest of the trap tricks, were the two different names basically. In the TCG, we got Ash Blossom and Evenly Matched, but the OCG got Maxi and Gozen Match. And while I do think that this one was pretty good, where we got Ash Blossom and we got Evenly Matched, I would have liked, actually, probably more so, getting a Maxi reprint, because the card overall is that, even though it's forbidden here in the TCG, having a reprint of a card that is for some reason still almost $10 per common copy of the card, even though it's forbidden, is crazy, and would have been really nice to have that for alternate formats. Continuing on to the Albaz Strike or Alba Strike structure deck, we got Warning Point and we got common tokens in our structure decks, while the OCG got Ice Dragon's Prison, which was a card that was extremely expensive again at its time. And they got super rare and secret rare tokens, while we got common again. So just another example of them getting something better than us in this sense. The Cyber Strike structure deck versus the Cyber Style successor. We got Cybernetic Overflow, while they got Lightning Storm, and we didn't get a reprint of Lightning Storm until I think it was Magnificent Mavens or a Tin. Basically, the freezing change structure deck versus the Ice Barrier or the Frozen Prison. We got Zuijin of the Ice Barrier and Ice Bond, if that's how, or Ace Bond, however you say that, versus the OCG that got Crossout Designator, which we didn't even have at the time yet, and Vanity's Emptiness, which is again a forbidden card, but again would have been a nice reprint. And then this one is the one that really gets me a little bit, because it's just so poorly done. The Spirit Charmer structure deck versus Masters of Spiritual Arts. So in the Spirit Charmer structure deck, we got Raigeki. That is the only thing that we got, like, as a thing. But that we got that was different from the OCG. But the OCG got a bunch of other cards that we didn't get. So for example, they got Evenly Matched, Sangan, Wonder Wand, Heat Wave, and Santa Claus. Mind you, almost all of these cards, other than Wonder Wand, at some point were meta in the last couple of years, especially during COVID format. Evenly Matched was a card that was both mained and sided in like every single side deck. Sangan was played really heavily with the adventure cards for a long time. Heat Wave is played by a ton of Tenpai players, and was one of the first things that people went back to get again. That was just not reprinted ever since Star Trek Blast outside of Speed Duel tournament packs. And Santa Claus, which again, the highest rarity I think was a gold collector. It was like a collector's set for it was like a gold rare or something, I think. And then it was just never reprinted again for the most part, outside of I think like an advent calendar, and it wasn't even like an English advent calendar if I recall correctly. And this was in a structure deck for the OCG that we could have just got imported here and would have been fine. All these cards would have been great cards to be imported, but instead, just no, we get Raigeki. We Raigeki's enough. Which it just goes to show that we have a really long way to go when it comes to creating products that the player base will probably enjoy, while at the same time having stuff that works for the game. And I think this is part of the problem when it comes to it. Konami is entirely disconnected from their community in a way that just doesn't really add up. And a really easy way to show this is showing off the Um, I'm going to show a clip of the ad that they did for Tempi Dragon. And I just realized that didn't have sound at it at all. So I'm going to replay it again. Sorry about that.
You'll need a copy of Trident Dragion. So make sure to check your collection to see if you have one, and ask a friend if you don't.
So basically, if you don't have a card, go ask a friend for a $100 card. That is them telling you that, oh yeah, instead of reprinting it and making it so you have to, buy the set and making it pretty cheap or something. Like Tempi Dragon is probably one of the cheapest good archetypes that they have in recent years, but yet for some reason they decided to just go, yeah, well, Trident Dragon, we're just not going to reprint. And yeah, that card's $100 now, so the deck is now not as cheap as it should be, realistically. And then again, you have to get Molcharmies, which Molcharmies is just another 120 plus investment, making it another very expensive deck to get. That being said, while I do congratulate them with how they did the Tempi lineup and the rarities and stuff, it is still a far cry from what we kind of need for everything. And then to move on to some of the other issues with the game. So like I guess this is probably the best time to talk about the way that they make cards nowadays. Between the Molchumi stuff and Shifter and a couple of other cards that are just not very fun especially with their lingering effects, is like Protos and Colossus and things. People don't like lingering effects and people don't like floodgates. So while I don't think that floodgates are inherently bad for the game, I think that when you make floodgates as monsters, they become harder to remove because there's a lot of protection for monster cards rather than stuff like trap cards, like and they become a lot slower when they become trap cards, right? So things like skill drain and things such as like Goza Match, while I think that they can be a little toxic for the game, they used to be cards that were considered not very good because everybody played back for removal, everybody played some sort of interaction, right? So when it came back then, the idea, especially with older Yu-Gi-Oh, the idea became that it was more focused around deck building and proper deck building, understanding how to build your deck, and prepping for different scenarios. Right, back row was a lot more important when the formats were were still slower. And I mean, even this even harpens back to like the 5Ds era when when things actually started picking up a lot. With you had like infinite looping combos of like Stardust Dragon, like desynchro stuff. You had like with tuning wares, you had FTKs constantly. You had like the Frog Tribute FTK and different things. But yeah, even when when people were playing Six Samurai and stuff, you still had decks that were able to still like win and play the game, playing things like bottomless trap holes and things such as, right, because they interacted with the board and they helped change up the game. Unfortunately, that's just not how it is anymore. And like certain decks can do that because they play hand traps or they play a certain control style, right? Like Trap Tricks can play stuff, but they like at the same time they have to play very specific versions of the trap hole cards that were good, right? Floodgate Trap Hole prevents people from synchroing with them, exceeding with them, link summoning with them, and makes it like stuck face down. But then it also will trigger your Sarah and all this other stuff. So like while like you can't play like Trap Hole or Bottomless Trap Hole anymore, is like the downside, right? Likewise, it just the game design has slowly became worse and worse. So like Fiend Smith was just not a good idea. While the cards were cool looking and like they have cool design choices and things like that, stuff like overall just any deck being able to go into it was pretty bad. Like when people make the same argument that like Verte was bad for the game, or Predaplant Anaconda Verte or Verte Anaconda, however you say that name, people make the argument that that was bad for the game. I used to make the argument that that card was good for the game, because it was generic and stuff, right? But you had to play like bricks and like certain things around it in order to make it relatively good. The opposite becomes true when it comes to stuff like Fiendsmith, because every card in the deck, other than Lori for the most part, but even then, everything in discard, um, you can put it back into the deck and everything. The Fiendsmith stuff has like next to no bricks. It just creates a really toxic game state, and they all kind of go for the same end board with it and stuff. So it's very much, in my opinion, I feel like Fiendsmith was just overdoing the power creep, which was just really bad in my opinion. Like if it was something that like same thing happened with like Mole Chummy stuff, right? If it was something that only like rogue decks could play, it would be something cool and nobody would have an interest with it, right? Or nobody would have a problem with it because only rogue decks or tier 2 decks or something could play it. But then and that was kind of how people used to look at Shifter for a while. And then when Shifter kind of came to the forefront, that how everybody plays it in like a rogue deck, or now meta decks are able to play it and play around it, it becomes a problem, which I think it's a little disingenuous, but at the same time it's very I get it. Card design overall has been pretty poor, and this is I guess we're to an easy transition to kind of talk about why people like Jess have been quitting. Jess is the EU champ. Decided that she would rather quit the game and go to another game, or maybe not go to another game, but like she would rather quit the game and play casually rather than continue trying to play competitively. After playing for 10 years and finally winning and stuff, like to the point where like she talks about going to Worlds, getting top 8, and then walking away from Worlds with nothing, which is just an absolutely abysmal problem to have. And that goes into a whole discussion about prizing, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But the same thing happens. Like prizing is bad. Konami, she talks about Konami's recognition of their top players is awful, and again, it is. Konami doesn't recognize their players at all. Meanwhile, stuff like Magic the Gathering and Pokemon sit here with Magic the Gathering has like the Hall of Fame, and I think Pokemon has a whole thing with the different like starter decks and things that you can get from Worlds and whatnot. So like the thing is, we have alternate games that we can go to, but like people don't want to go to those alternate games all the time because like it's not that those are bad or something. It's that it's that like they got in the Yu-Gi-Oh because they like the game, and then when you have things like this happen where people go, oh, okay, well, like Yu-Gi-Oh has its crappy pricing, but then look at Lorcana and see its pricing. Look at One Piece and see the insane pricing that they have, and then look at Pokemon and see the pricing that they have. Meanwhile, at the same time, you have people that you have the same pros, like Jess talking about it. You have Raphael Nevin who goes to One Piece. You have Christian Urena who gets who's been playing Lorcana and hates the idea of the prize cards just being another vanilla monster, which absolutely, like, you can never sell these prize cards anymore because, one, they give them out relatively easily and or to like the top players, and they act like this is like the all end all. And then you have people like Andre Torres who went to Pokemon for a bunch of stuff, who I think even in like his deck profile for Top Cut talks about how he was not playing Yu-Gi-Oh and he was focusing on Pokemon, because he was not focusing on Yu-Gi-Oh because he was just too busy with Pokemon, and yet he's still topped. And it's one of those like just crazy things with it where it's like, okay, well, like you have all this stuff, but yet and you have all these pro players basically leaving the game, and how do you fix that? Prizing is the big thing to fix. We'll talk about some fixes that we can do for it, but just to talk about it, Yu-Gi-Oh's prizing is pretty abysmal, right? And I wrote down the prizing here so I'd be able to talk about it and not completely stutter over it, right? So if you get to top 32, and this is for YCS pricing, I wanna iterate here. So for YCS, if you get top 32, you get a rubber playmat. Which, okay, if you get the top 16, you get a box of whatever the latest set is on top of the playmat. All right. So I do also want to mention, for every level of pricing I'm going to talk about further down to until first place. You get all the previous pricing, right? So everybody, all the top cut people from 32 to first, you get the playmat, if that makes sense. So top 16 also get a box. Top 8 get a Nintendo Switch. Like, okay, for a YCS. So you travel across the United States, or you travel to, or if you're in Europe, you travel to a country, and you play in an event. If you get top 32 at an event, you get a rubber playmat, which sells for maybe $100, maybe, if you're lucky. And then top 16 gets a box, so maybe $60 worth. Relatively. Depending on the set, if you hold on to it, could go up in price, could drop in price, right? Top 8 gets a Nintendo Switch, which, I mean, I don't know if you check the prices on a Nintendo Switch. Then first of all, the Nintendo Switch is a joke. Like, Nintendo themselves are a joke, but not to get into that argument. But ultimately, like, the Switch is not a good console, and it's not a good bit of pricing. It would be good alongside some more things, but like realistically, like you would need, like, there's next to no incentive to go out to an event for this level of stuff, right? Top 3 get a prize card, so they get the Anotherverse card. I think they get the super rare version. Top 2 also get the ultra rare version of the prize card, and which, so if you make it to the finals, you also, like, both players in the finals get a premium messenger bag, air quotes premium messenger bag, and then first place gets the trophy, which, really, like, it looks like it's either glass or some sort of transparent plastic, which, at the end of the day, I would not. While it looks glass, I would not put it past Konami to make that a bit of plastic. It really just seems that they don't really like their players. Now, mind you, Lorcana also has, like, this. So to talk about Lorcana's participation and stuff. Lorcana has premier events, and I don't know what they call them yet, but, like, they're starting to. So if you early check in, you get an event specific promo. For participation, you get the Dragonfire card. Depending on the size of the event, the top 128 players get the Let It Go promo card. The top 60, which these are exclusive promos for the events, mind you. Top 64 gets a Cinderella promo. Top 32 gets a Rapunzel promo. Top 16 gets a playmat, as well as entry into their national event. So everybody from top 16 onward gets invites to Nats. Top 8 get a serialized Mickey Mouse promo card. Top 4 get 2 displays of whatever the current set is, and the top 2, so getting to the finals, gets you another 2 boxes of the current set, and the winner of the finals gets the trophy plus a full set of a current challenge legal set in the highest rarity. So they get the entire set of whatever set that's recent in the highest rarity possible, including enchanted cards, which I don't know what that means, but I can only imagine, like, it's like saying that we're going to give a complete set of, Agov to somebody, and they get all the Starlight Rares and stuff out of it. So Lorcana just immediately, like, pricing wise, just blows, just that, and just in promos kind of blows Yu-Gi-Oh out of the water, and that's YCS level stuff. So, like, let alone going to Worlds as I feel for Jess, and I'll bring her back up again. I feel for Jess because at the end of the day, like, I'm not a professional player. Like, I like to act like I'm like I'm very good at the game and I'm competitive, and I make good calls and stuff, per se, but, like, that's like in my circles and stuff, right? I'm not going to events and winning anything, right? Like I'm not some like maverick at the game, right? I'm not gonna sit here and fake it. But you have the EU champion who won with Rika, who won with who won with a plant pile, and even she goes, yeah, there's issues with the way that organized play is, time stalling, or not even stalling, just time rules are a problem. Lingering effects like spooky dogwood, dimensional shifter, Molchami, Perlui, or however you say it again, are problems. And like, mind you, this is a person who plays Rika, who very often can go to game three and just win in time, because they have a very long combo, and in their combo, their life points become higher than yours. Um, it's very like even she is saying, yeah, there's a problem with time rules in the game. So it's very like if people kind of act like a lot of these pro players leaving the game is disingenuous, like they only care about prizing and stuff, and like I get that, but at the same time, like these people don't want to play. Like these people are here to play Yu-Gi-Oh because they like the game, right? They're not here to play like Hearthstone, where it's like, oh, if you open like these two cards, you automatically win the game, or like, you have to rely on RNG to win the game. There is going to be RNG in Yu-Gi-Oh, right? Like RNG exists in all games like this, right? But to a certain extent, that RNG is mitigated by skill, and that is the whole idea behind it, right? That's why I made the argument earlier that like the RNG skill, the RNG in tier limits didn't outweigh the skill, because you had to know what to do with the cards with the randomness that you were given, if that makes sense, right? You were doled a random, like even more so than the opening hand that you're given, right? You were doled a couple cards milled that you and your opponent both had to do, and a lot of that in a lot of the occasions with these Shuzu cards, and you and your opponent both had to make decisions of what you're going to do based on the cards that you sent to the graveyard. So if your opponent whiffed and didn't send anything good, but you sent a bunch of good stuff, you do this, you do that, your end words are kind of the same overall, but how you get there changes. And that was like the big skill difference when it came to the tier limit, to the tier limit time. A lot of people talk about how they either go on about how skillful of a matchup it was, especially the mirror, or they talk about or people talk about how unskillful it was because of the RNG, and that I think both arguments are valid, but both arguments are wrong in the sense that like it wasn't only skill based, it wasn't only RNG based, you know. And not to get into that, not to get into like a huge diatribe about the tier limit format, but in that same regard, we don't have that same level of skill difference and stuff from there that we do here, right? Because now it's like you open Shifter Molchummy, or like in game three you open Dogwood, and your opponent can't play the game because if they do anything, then or stuff like and you see more of it in the side deck too, like Phantasme, the Molchummy cards, Spooky Dogwood, because it just the amount of time the amount of time that it takes to break through boards, and the amount of time that it takes to do your combo, is just not very feasible to work through a lot of the stuff, and like that's what a lot of players tend to get to. I think Nesh really talked about this well in his video going over the Jess problem, or the going over the video with Jess. So if you were more interested in some more like he gets kind of heated about it in his video, and I can only imagine because like as somebody who's played this game for longer than Jess has, it shows that like the game gets us emotional, but at the same time like realistically we all understand that like it's a game and it will go away at some point, but at what point are we not going to be the last man standing? And I think that was like a really big part of Jess's video. To kind of move on to some stuff, like I guess we could talk about some solutions. So I think that some solutions that Konami could address, and I'll open up with a callback to the earlier part of the discussion where we talked about we talked about the tweet from Jeff Jones, right? Talking about their shareholders and such. One of the things that they wanted to fix was, and I'm going to ignore the Master Duel problem because, frankly, I think Master Duel is its own separate beast, and I think it being its own separate thing is fine, right? Similar to how they did with Speed Duels, similar to how they did with Duel Links and such, like it being its own thing is very much like I think that's fine. But for example, though, they talked about the world stream and how their streams don't tend to do very well. And I think more than anything, there's a whole lot of issues that goes into it. And I've been seeing some things change in the streaming scene when it comes to the streams, when it comes to like their nats and stuff. And I want to address that because it is very important to me. So I think to kind of bring back that thing, advertising is a huge thing that they need to focus on, right? So Pokemon is notorious for how well they advertise their events, or specifically their Worlds events. They did a whole animated like anime commercial talking about it, and going over it and like showing off, like I think they showed off past champs and stuff. It was super cool, and I think that and like it was a beautiful animation. And I think that like if Yu-Gi-Oh or Konami even tried to put like a little bit of that effort into it, I think it would have been fine. Instead, we have this like weird anime commercial thing for like side stories. So like they did like these cool, like mind you, they're cool. Like don't get me wrong, but like why am I looking at like an animation for like Albaz, for like Blue Eyes White Dragon stuff, like these different archetype things? Like yeah, I love the animation that they did for Live Twin stuff, right, where they show off the art for the cards and everything and how they fit together. But why is that there? Why is that a thing? Why do I see this Melfi animation? Why do I see all this stuff? It just doesn't fit into like what it like it's just something that they can play on loop in between rounds, which just doesn't really like it's guess that card is just as entertaining at that point. Which I think is a big problem too. So like so to go over it, they don't advertise very well for their streams. I think if they advertise their streams a bit better, then it would be then I think it would do a lot better. And I'm just gonna throw up a graphic here to just to have something here. So I think advertising is a big thing. If they promoted upcoming events and streams regularly, I think it would be good rather than just scheduling it on their YouTube page like the 2 days prior and then being like, yeah, we advertise it. I think like making a tweet, making posts about it, like making the YouTube schedule is good. Same thing with Twitch. I think would be good. But like running an actual commercial for something like for even like a couple of days, or even if you do like ads specifically like on Twitch or on YouTube, like you don't have to make them very huge ads, or you don't have to make like they don't have to hit big. They just have to hit enough to get people to watch the stream, right? And like it's a little bit of spending money that you'd have to do in order to get people to get to your streams. Mind you, a lot of these solutions are going to take money out of Konami's pocket, and so like the idea is that Konami probably won't do them. But in the long run, in a lot of these solutions, while it takes money out of Konami's pocket to do these, it puts money back into their pocket with the success that they can have, right? Minimizing the dead air on stream, I think, is probably another huge thing. They could utilize stream delays to the point where, like, maybe they only start the stream a little into the event, right? So if the event starts at noon Eastern time, if the stream starts at 2 o'clock Eastern time, right, then that's 2 hours and that's 2 entire rounds that you could do prior to actually starting the stream to help minimize the amount of dead air between rounds. So you can show round one like almost as soon as the stream starts, because it's pre-recorded at that point with the casters, and then and you can have the casters do their thing normally at the event, but then stream it to the rest of the people later. Likewise, the stream can catch up to the actual event at some point, especially later in the day, when things happen, because the later the stream gets, the less people there are anyway. So focusing on fixing the dead air stuff later in the streams, I think is, fine. Is whatever. And then likewise, it helps you to get things organized. You're not trying to focus on fixing up the stream and everything. Like, it lets you get everything ready to go and not have issues. Featuring different decks, and I think and having stuff like deck profiles in between matches, I think is really good. So for example, right, at the EU during the last nationals, we had a player in the early rounds have a Mimigal Cashier deck. While Dino didn't do incredibly well in the event, still being able to take him aside, do a deck profile, and show that deck profile at some point during the event on stream to help fill that dead air would have been extremely cool. And as long as they're okay with giving out their deck profile, I think it'll be fine. Likewise, at the same time, every Snake Eyes Fiendsmith deck profile is the same. It'd be an easy way to show off the Fiendsmith stuff if you just had a Snake Eyes Fiendsmith player come over to the side and show off their deck profile. Same thing with Uvel Fiendsmith. Like, at most, like just have them not show their side deck, right? That's perfectly fine if they don't show off their side deck. But you already have a feature match, so people will see the cards in your deck and everything. Or not every card in your deck, but they will see most of the cards in your deck, hopefully, while it's being played, right? So the idea of being able to do a deck profile off to the side, and then have it on stream and stuff, I think is super cool. It gives people the chance to talk about their deck, fill up empty air, and all that stuff. I think that's fine. If you recorded side events and had them ready to go in between rounds, I think that would be good. I've been seeing them use this tactic actually in a lot of the in like the EU NAT stuff, and I think some NA stuff has been doing it. So I think that's very good. And so it's like the European streams have been upping their game, yeah, but the NA streams have definitely not been have been dropping the ball, in my opinion. Likewise, the EU casters all dress to impress, while the NA casters, some of them are pretty good about it, but not I get it, not everybody can be lampy, right? But at the same time, I think that I feel that his streamer background and stuff lends to his caster prowess. I think that some simple caster training, or commentator training would go a long way. And I don't want to say enforce a dress code, but something akin to that for people who are on stream, or not people on stream per se, but for specifically the casters, would definitely I think lend a lot of credence to it. I think it would be a big thing. And these are for the streaming stuff in particular. This is for stuff that Konami can specifically do for their streams to help fix their streams. One of the things that I think that they can do for the booster pack problem, or for the card problem, I think is that if you wanted to stop focusing on whales so much, I think is the big thing. So we have this big Bazinga, Beluga, whatever it's called, coming out for the new rarity collection set. I think instead of going into rarity collections the way that they do, I think if they just took packs from now on and shifted it to be what's the word for it? And they shifted it to have cards that were multiple rarities of the same card in the set, the way that the OCG does, or similar to the way that the OCG does, I think that would be incredible. So for example, right, if we had the same thing that they did for Fiendsmith, I think having an ultra rare Fiendsmith engraver, a secret rare engraver, and the Starlight rare, or an ultimate rare engraver, I think having those three rarities in the same set would have been really good. And you could still keep the Starlight rare, right? And keep the secret rare, but having the ultra rare, the easier to pull version, would have made this entire set so much easier to have stuff with. It also means that like chase cards can have multiple rarity slots and things like that, where we can have things like that again. I don't think we need to make it exactly like the OCG's pack layout, but having something similar to the pack layout of the OCG, I think would make it so one, it would make people want to buy more packs again, because being able to pull different rarities of cards is something that people always like to do anyway. Look how well Rarity Collections 1 and 2 did, even though Rarity Collection 2 was full of cards that were just filler. That set sold really well because people love to pull different rarities of different cards, and just having the different rarity, like having the ability to pull like a quarter century, like secret rare, starlight rare, basically, of a card, like MST and stuff, was just nice to have. Likewise, I think putting stuff like that in normal packs would be extraordinarily easy way to make it so like cards would excel. There are people out there who would argue against that and be like, okay, well, if they did that, then it would devalue the card in general, right? Like engraver wouldn't be the engraver price would be awful if you made a cheap version of it, right? But then at the same time, why would that be bad? But also at the same time, it would just change which cards become like the big money cards. So instead of having cards like Engraver that are $100 and then have a secret rare of it, or for the $100 for the secret rare and then have a Starlight rare of it, that's four times the version of it, or four times the value of it. Instead, you could have an ultra rare, which is like $30-$40, right? That's still pretty expensive overall as a card because you need three of it, but at the same time, that's more accessible, right? While you have the secret rare, which is like 50 maybe $60, because its value would go down because there's a cheaper copy of it, right? But then you would still have the Starlight Rare, and the Starlight Rare would still be an incredibly expensive copy of the card, even with the extra rarity behind, or even with the extra rarity behind it. We've seen it time and time again. Just because cheaper versions of the card comes out doesn't mean that the Starlight Rare's value goes down. In a lot of cases, the Starlight Rare's value goes up because it's still the highest rarity copy of the card, and the more reprints and that it gets, the less likely it is for them to reprint it, and the less likely it is that people will have that high rarity copy of it, if that makes sense, right? It's not that there's less copies of it out in the world, it's that it becomes more of a commodity item, right? At that point. It's why you have cards like Ash Blossom, right, where the quarter century secret rare in the first rarity collection is still an extremely expensive card. Meanwhile, you can get the super rare version of it, or like the common copy of it, for like $1 or $2. It ultimately, at the end of the day, just makes the card easier to access, and makes the versions of it that are so incredibly expensive either more so because they're chase copies at that point, right? Or it makes them a little less valuable, but not enough to make it like the difference between that is minuscule in that in that size of a value. That change is minuscule compared, is what I'm saying, right? Like when you get to cards that are a few $100s, a $20 difference isn't going to make or break the bank for you. And I think that's a big thing that they could do to help fix that. It would also help to change this absurd amount of like rarity changes that they've been doing. They've been doing this for almost 20 years now, where they just change the rarities of cards and packs just to serve the purpose of making a pack more sought after, or a certain card more sought after, because they want to make the card harder to pull. And ultimately, at the end of the day, I think that's just bad for the game. And I think that's bad for the community, because it just creates an environment where you're basically treating your players of a TCG like the players of pachinko machines and slot machines. It's just another instance where, and it's not the players who are making it that feel that way. It's Konami saying, "Look at our loot boxes, guys." And I think a really easy way to help fix that would be like the rarity change. Likewise with all this stuff, I feel like there is a need to say that like prizing needs to change. Prizing absolutely needs to change. Like, I don't want to sit here and besmirch the guy's good name, because the man made a series. He made he made a series that is near and dear to everybody's hearts, right? But Takahashi is dead. He's been dead for a few years now. Like, yes, he died a hero, and yes, like his memory will go on, but he is gone. And the agreement, or the whole honoring his name by making it so people will play for honor and fun rather than for money, I think is an outdated and antiquated way of thinking, and I think that's the biggest problem with the game. Even if you wanted to, even if you wanted to keep that focus to the game, I feel like there's a big problem with that. You have things like ARG that existed in the past, where ARG had Yu-Gi-Oh tournaments and stuff, but at the same time they did cash tournaments. Yes, they eventually did their own ban list, and I think that's what, the big thing that got them hit. But at some point, Konami stepped in and said, "Hey, no more of this," and ARG went kaput, which I think it was a big. I think that was like a big turnaround for a lot of the community. Because also around that same time, though, you had a lot of fighting games like Super Smash Brothers and Street Fighter and stuff. They have a lot of what a lot of people call grassroots tournaments, where it's community funded and like it's community driven tournaments and such, where where communities are making their own tournaments and events to host and do and have prizing. Usually it's like cash prizing or something such as, especially in the fighting game community. And you have people like, you kind of have like the Coliseum and luxury gaming and stuff with Yu-Gi-Oh, but it's far and few between when it comes to big events, right? Like luxury gaming had some big events, I think, in the past. I know. I think it's I think it's MST or Tombox or one of them. One of the Yugi tubers who hosted like their own events. They would do Chow Slime. I think it was the name of it. I wasn't too into the game at that point when I was going on, or rather, I was focusing more on remote duels when that was going on. I think those were all. I think Chow Slime was done on EDO Pro. If I remember correctly, I didn't really play on EDO Pro too much, so. But you have these grassroots tournaments like this that, they pop up, but they don't, they don't stay very long. And I think part of the problem with that too is that Konami, has, they hit ARG on the head really hard with that and took them out. I think, if they were less, if they were less brutal with taking out companies who wanted to have their own tournaments and stuff, I think a grassroots would be a great way for people to hold events. And I think one of the best ways for those events to be done is through stuff like Master Duel and remote dueling and in-person events. And I think remote dueling is one of the easiest ways for grassroots to take off, and it should be a really easy way for it to take off, because you have ways to help counteract cheating. You have ways to help counteract all that kind of stuff for remote stuff. For remote dueling in specific and whatnot. You have Master Duel, which is an automatic simulator, which is pretty easy to do, and you can make it a best 2 out of 3 and stuff. You can have people submit deck lists and whatnot, and it becomes like you can make it very controlled, and then timing rules don't have to be a problem with Master Duel as much, and whatnot. And at some point, you can end up changing the rules slightly to help facilitate certain things with grassroots tournaments, and I think that would be good. But if Konami sees them, the issue is that what Konami sees them and orbital nukes them basically, and that would be bad. And as God forbid you make money trying to host these events, that would be awful, right? So I think that's another part of the big thing that's really sad, is that while a 10-man locals can give you better prizing basically, than a than a YCS level event. I think that's the big thing. I think if grassroots tournaments would give you the big money stuff, at that point you could still have things like YCS and whatnot to give you the invites to Nats. But that becomes at that point that becomes all honor based and whatnot, right? That at that point the game stays, at least on Konami side, stays what it always was intended to be. But then with the grassroots side or the other organizations that aren't Konami, they can still do the whole money tournaments and things such as they can still do like things like that to help push for prizing, similarly to how Pokemon does, similar to how MTG does. And then it'd be easy to also copy Lorcana's layout for stuff. Lorcana has a prizing layout that is very easy for something like Konami to copy, because it's promo cards. It's not money based. So it'd be very easy just to throw extra promos and stuff into it. Like I know that like with Nats and stuff, they give you like a pack of sleeves. If they started doing extra stuff like that for YCS for participation, if they started doing stuff like that for YCS and whatnot too, as well, I think that would be very big. And I think that's something that we need to talk about too, because Konami's already started doing some other really awkward decisions for stuff with some of these posts that they've had. So, for example, they put out this new playmat policy talking about stuff during a WCQ, where all WCQ main event and world qualifying points playoff participants must use only solid plain color or officially licensed Yu-Gi-Oh game mats. Same thing for the sleeves. And then if card sleeves and game mats are provided, you have to use them. Or like on feature match and stuff. And then they give you these like 3 reasons for it, or to reduce the time spent during the tournament checking duelist accessories, to help free up judges to spend less time monitoring accessories, etc., and to ensure that the consistency to provide experienced attendees of all ages. Okay, mind you, first of all, a lot of the people who play this game are all of age. To have people travel to these big events, most of the players there are of age. Yes, there are people who are underage at these events, and yes, we should protect these people. This is not an advocacy for against that. What I'm saying is that if you are going to have an event like this, at that point, just start making it 18 plus, because that's what most of your player base is going after anyway. If you're going to make a player base and basically foster a player base that is entirely of people who need to spend an exuberant amount of money to travel to your events, to spend tons of money to buy your cards, to spend thousands of hours playing the game in order to try to top an event, then at the same and then to say like, oh yeah, well, you have to use plain color playmats because the kids aren't gonna like your anime profile picture playmats. And while like a lot of them are pretty, like, yeah, I get it, right? The idea is that they don't want players to have like inappropriate game mats and things such as. This rule isn't that though. They already have that rule, right? For example, like the tour guide feet mat, right? They don't want that mat on there. It's sexualizing feet and it's weird. It's like a weird image and stuff. They don't want that, right? At the same time, they already have a rule against that. So why would they need to make this new rule? What this does is it polices the players into not being able to use custom playmats. It polices players to not use custom sleeves. Likewise, they can only use what Konami is saying. They can only use plain color sleeves, which limits you to very specific brands and things such as, or officially licensed Yu-Gi-Oh sleeves, which means Konami is basically saying, "Oh, well, you got those custom sleeves. Take them off, boy. Here's our Maji Karibo sleeves or whatever." Which are just Konami sleeves are pretty much all terrible sleeves. By the way, their sleeves consistency has been dog water over the years. So whatever. And then the same thing of, oh, you have a custom game mat, or you have a play mat that has like your store's logo or something on it, whatever. Mind you, this isn't specifically even talking about feature matches yet. This is the first one, right? Like the game mat. Oh, you have that's a nice cool anime playmat you have. That's the cool One Piece playmat. Get that out of here. You're gonna actually use this. You're actually gonna use this Gold Pride playmat. yeah, Captain Carry, yeah, this is the playmat for it. Use this playmat and go on. But I think at the end of the day, what this also means is that uh, to reduce the time spent during the tournament checking duels accessories, basically this is to help judges, right? But then a judge now has to remember what every single Yu-Gi-Oh playmat looks like, because if you have a forged like Temu playmat or like AliExpress playmat that looks like a real playmat, just because like you got like a fake Chinese copy of like the Japanese YCS gigantic sprite playmat, for example, that just means that okay, cool. You just you're the like if you got that one, even though it's a Yu-Gi-Oh product basically and it has gigantic sprite on it, it's not officially licensed. But like a judge has to figure out to catch that. Otherwise, like how are they gonna know, right? It's just another example of more issues that are going to arise. It's also just like it's a policy that just didn't need to exist. They're just trying to police what kind of products that you're using. It's just a way for them to kill Mana Moon. It's a way for them to kill Imperium Duelist. It's a way for them to kill Sleeve Sheaf and all these other companies like Inked Gaming and Your Playmat and things such as that do customs or that do like anime style stuff. Likewise, they also did they did this update, which people were celebrating this update, saying thank you for the transparency. But here's the thing, right? I'm not going to celebrate this. This is them talking about the new Forbidden List is coming in late August. Um, I'm not going to celebrate this because the thing is this was the norm back in the day. This was the norm, even through COVID, until like the late end of COVID, where people got angry at them because they were like 2 weeks late on a ban list. They basically were like, yeah, starting from now on, we're just not gonna post a date anymore, and like they gave us, and so like we get no warning ban lists basically at that point. And we've had that for like about 2 years, I think, at this point now. I think that's awful, and basically them doing this, it was supposed to be the norm in the first place, and not even then they didn't give us a date. They just said late August. So at this point that just means that, oh yeah, they'll post it at like midnight on the, or like 11:59 p.m. on the 31st, and then be like, yeah, well, we did it late August like we said. It's very much just like to me it's just a disingenuous way of them being like, yeah, we'll give you the ban list when we say so, which is still just how it is, and it's just, I think it's bad. And then to go over this, Speed Duel is ending. I think this is stupid. As well, they create a whole game mode, and they create packs for it where you can spend a ton of money on. People spent money on this game. People spent a lot of time playing Speed Duels. People spent a lot of effort into putting into these things. They had its own forbidden list. They had its own ban list. They had its own format. It had its own merch, its own playmats, and everything. And then at the end of the day, they go, "Yeah, we're just gonna stop making it now. Yeah, Speed Duels is coming to an end. Yeah, just we're not doing it anymore." There's no explanation as to why. Oh, it's not like, okay, well, financially we can't keep up with it. It's not, oh, the player numbers weren't doing as well as we thought they were. They weren't like the projections that we had for stuff, just like things weren't adding up, things aren't coming together. We can't do this or something at the end of the day, if Speed Duels was too much for you to keep going, you could say it, right? If there's something wrong with the community or something wrong with the Speed Duel stuff in general, you could say it. All this to say, a single sentence or two sentence tweet, basically, to show that like the Speed Duels is ending with zero explanation as to why, I think is disingenuous. I think it's bad as a company, and like in general, this is just bad, right? Um, I was going and like all this to say, I bring this stuff up, and like this is all recent news. I bring this up because I was going to talk about some of the things where they could, to help fix the current meta with stuff. They could do more remote duels. They could do some more alternate format stuff. Like they could bring in more Edison support and more Goat support in the form of like, I even have graphics for it, so I'll pull it up, right? So they had, like, you could bring in Time Wizard stuff where you could have old prizing come back, or you could have a specific like Time Wizard tournament pack for stuff. You could hold more Edison stuff rather than just Winamats for like Light and Darkness Dragonflame mats. You could actually have some kind of feasible prizing that would help solidify Time Wizard as like a community game mode and stuff, right? Instead we get nothing, and you get like a Light and Darkness Dragon playmat. And I was going to talk about all this more a little bit and kind of talk about some of the extra stuff that you could do for stuff. But I think I talked about remote duels enough during grassroots stuff and whatnot, because I think that bringing back remote duels was like a big push, would have been a really big and easy push for stuff. But Konami just shows time and time again that the side formats like Time Wizard or remote duels and stuff, they just don't care about, right? They've stopped doing extravaganzas completely. They've stopped doing remote duel regionals for most stores. I think the only one that still does it remotely at all is the side deck, and even then they're starting to slow down. I think the side deck and I think Waffles and Enthusiasm and like one other store are like the only two stores that still do remote duel locals at all. And if you know any that still do remote to locals, or you're a store, or you know a store that was open to doing them and wants to do them, please reach out to me, because I would absolutely love to join those servers, play in those servers, because I've been looking for a good place to play for a while now. If you're even still watching, and this is like an hour and 20 minutes in. But like I did say this was going to be a long video. But yet we all this to say is that Konami is doing a really, I think in my opinion, a poor job at trying to keep a community. We've seen companies pull this kind of stuff where they basically nuke themselves in a sense, right? Wizards of the Coast with Magic is doing this extremely badly right now. More so than anything, they've been doing it with their D&D department and such as, where like we already know that like it's a toxic work environment over there at Hasbro. And if you don't know, Wizards of the Coast, the people behind Magic and D&D, are owned by Hasbro and ran by Hasbro. So it's this it is when I say Hasbro or Wizards of the Coast and I use them interchangeably, it's because they're the same thing for the most part. Well, especially nowadays, they're the same thing. So you have these people at Hasbro, you have these people at Wizards of the Coast that, especially with their D&D department, everything is down because they just keep trying to change stuff. You can tell that Magic is doing this really weird last leg approach to stuff, where they thought were with Hasbro and how poorly Wizards of the Coast does card games for a lot of their stuff. Like, people talk about how good Magic is, and I'm not sitting here to detract from that. If you like the way that Magic is ran, that's good for you. And I'm glad that you enjoy it. At the same time, Wizards of the Coast notoriously almost killed Pokemon, and I don't mean like, oh yeah, their Magic game was just doing better than Pokemon. I mean, Pokemon was doing poorly to a point where they sold to Wizards of the Coast, and Wizards of the Coast almost drove Pokemon into the ground, to the point where Pokemon or Game Freak came back and bought Pokemon back from them, or bought their rights to the card game for Pokemon anyway, back from Wizards of the Coast. They bought it at a fucking premium, right? So they sold it, and then they bought it back for cheaper than they sold it for. So like they got their money, they made money doing this. I think it's absolutely crazy. And now you have Magic on this like last like stuff, because Hasbro doesn't really know how to run stuff. We've seen them not knowing how to run stuff. When the My Little Pony card game came out, they had 4 sets of that happen, and the entire thing shut down. Now they put out prize cards as normal cards, right? So you have prize cards like stuff like Nightmare Moon, which were, as a prize card is like $70-$80 for a dead game. But then at the same time, that prize card looks the exact same. There's zero differential between the two for the Nightmare Moon from the pack and the prize card one. It's crazy. Likewise, Magic at this point in time is ran entirely on its crossover events, right? You have the Kaiju crossover stuff. You have Fallout crossover stuff. They have My Little Pony crossover stuff. How many times at this point? And all the and things such as that. So you have Magic the Gathering basically on its last leg, and this is just a thing that I'm talking about mostly because you have Wizards of the Coast in a similar situation to Konami, where they have poor communication with their fan base. They have poor communication with employees, though, and basically nothing ever goes anywhere when communicating with a company. Likewise, Konami, if you reach out to Konami, you email Konami, you talk to staff or something. Most of the staff can't even get a hold of stuff. So at the same time, where you have a company like Magic and Konami, where these companies seem too big to fail, just look at Bandai. Bandai has One Piece right now, and the new Dragon Ball Z game, and they're pretty big and they're doing well, but it's all on a clock, right? One Piece, the anime for One Piece is gonna end soon, and you have stuff like Dragon Ball, which is going kind of nowhere fast. But then you look at their other stuff, like you see you see the games all beforehand. Dragon Ball has gone through so many different versions of the card game. All the other Bandai games tend to fall flat very quickly. Like Bandai games, while having really great prizes and everything, are notorious for having short lifespans. So like it's not to say that we don't have alternatives when it comes to Yu-Gi-Oh or something like that. It's that like you have these big companies that hold these card games, but they all have problems. Every card game has problems, right? This isn't to make what Konami is doing. This isn't to say that what Konami is doing is okay. What this is saying is that while I see that Konami has problems, I see that other companies have problems. This is specifically a video that's supposed to be about Konami, but I have to compare and contrast them to other companies because what they are is a company, right? They want to make money, but you also have this player base that you have to foster in a way, because of the nature of how you're making your money with the game, of what it is. It's a game, right? Ultimately, at the end of the day, I think that Konami could stand to take some pointers on things from some other companies and use the history of some other companies, like with the recent stuff with Wizards of the Coast, with the recent stuff with some of the Bandai claims that have come out. Look at companies like Riot Games, where even though they're not a card game or like a company that does a lot of stuff with card games, they still they have was it Legends of the Rift or whatever, but like you look at stuff like League of Legends, where Yu-Gi-Oh is the highest selling card game out there, right? Like record breaking. Riot Games, with League of Legends was a record breaking sales for online games and whatnot, or for players and whatnot, right? All the people that got on to watch Worlds the many times that they've done it, absolutely like record breaking, incredible stuff, right? I think that there's lessons to be learned from how Riot Games worked with their stuff, and then like their League of Legends casters from a while ago, right? Like their LCS stuff and whatnot. But then look at the downfalls of a lot of things, right? League of Legends has slowly been a dying game. You have a lot of games that are basically falling, and then you have a lot of newer games, like you have like Why Schwartzers is doing popular or like slowly getting up there. Pokemon is staying a notoriously big one, mind you. Like out of all the companies I've talked about, outside of when it comes to their problems, I haven't really talked about Pokemon, because mind you, Nintendo is pretty bad about stuff, but ultimately Pokemon's been in a good spot most of the time. It's just been small issues here and there, and once they got their game back and they got back on their feet, Pokemon's been pretty good. I think that there's a lot of things that can be said about that, and I think I think there's a lot that we can kind of glean from how Konami has been going with this stuff. At this point, I hope you kind of understand why a lot of pros are leaving the game. I think I laid out a lot of the stuff pretty well. I know I stutter over a lot of stuff and try to incoherently follow this kind of format that I laid out for myself, but at the same time, I hope this was at least somewhat entertaining. If you like what you saw here, guys, I would love if you hit subscribe. My voice would love it. I did all this in one take. Now, mind you, this isn't the first take I've done, but I try to do all my videos in one take. I'm a one take Andy, so my voice would love it if you subscribed. Likewise, if you want to become a member and help support the channel, that'd be great. If you want to use any of the discount codes and stuff down in the description, that will be good. I have a 10% code for gem accessories, for custom deck box, or not custom deck boxes, sorry, for their luxury deck boxes. I have a code for Inked Gaming, a link in the description for that. Inked Gaming does custom playmats, and I think bags and stuff too. Likewise, I do 4 dueling book videos every single day. And I'm planning on doing shorts very soon for Edison format. We'll see how that goes. And yeah, so I do push out a lot of content, but it's mostly all dueling book stuff or some deck profiles here and there. So if you like what you see there, or if you like this video, please, again, subscribe, leave a like. It means the most. I'm so grateful for having fans that would be able to sit through all this stuff, and want to have that kind of discussion about the game, rather than just kind of throw fits about it like some of the people like on 4chan and on Twitter and stuff. So yeah, I hope you all have a wonderful day. God bless you all, and peace.